Hi everyone, thank you for spending time with me this morning, evening, or afternoon, whenever you've decided to tune into this presentation. Today's presentation, we're going to be talking about parent and student rights, what they mean to you and your student as they matriculate through the school system. So I'm going to share my screen so we can see the entire PowerPoint so we make sure that we don't miss anything because it's a very important topic. Parent-student rights, this is covered under Senate Bill 850 and 1108. These were laws that were put in place to support families of students with disabilities. So before we get into that, I wanted to give you a little information about Family Network on Disabilities. We have been around since 1985, and we are a family-driven organization. We are a 501(c), not-for-profit, and we are also part of a larger network of parent training and information centers, PTIs. Florida has 3 PTIs, which are POPIN, Parents of the Panhandle, Parent Support Network, and Parent Education Network. These 3 PTIs are what serve our families to give information, resources, and supports. We have our lived experience that allows us to have empathy with our families and really help families make the best decisions for everyone in their household. We are not attorneys, doctors, or paralegals, and we do not act in that capacity. So let's get right into it. Rights and responsibilities. What does that mean to you and your family as your child matriculates? Well, I'm going to tell you. So one of the things that it means is a freedom to bring whomever you would like to bring to your IEP meeting, your individual education plan. During your IEP meeting, you receive a little booklet at the end, which we know as procedural safeguards. Those procedural safeguards really give you the rights and hopefully you will understand those rights for your child in special education. So, freedom to bring a person of their choosing. So this was the first major change to parents' rights, to bring a person of their choice to the meeting. It could be a spouse, a family member, a friend, or someone else of the parents or the family's choosing. This is very important and it builds on the current right by making it absolutely clear that means anybody can attend on behalf of the family, with no limitations or barriers put in place so the family cannot bring someone. There's no requirement to the person that they choose, or the person doesn't have to have a special training or have specific knowledge. It would be great if the person that they brought had that knowledge about the child, because that is why everyone is attending this meeting. So a paper has to be signed by the parent expressing that no one from the district hindered them from bringing anyone to the meeting. So students with disabilities in high school graduation. As you can see, Senate Bill 850 eliminated the special diploma back in 2014-2015 when this law went into effect. This eliminated the special diploma. During that time, there were only three options for students: certificate of completion, a special diploma, and then a standardized diploma. 2 of those options did not lead to post-secondary work, and you weren't qualified for receiving any financial aid if you wanted to go on and do other things, because the special diploma was not recognized as a diploma. So because the special diploma was eliminated, Florida now has 3 different pathways. So students who began their work back in 2014, 2015, or later, they cannot work towards a special diploma. So I also want to take this time to bring up the secondary transition roadmap for families housed within Project 10. And it's a great resource for families and professionals to see what are the next steps for that student as they matriculate. So, explicit parental consent. This is extremely important because these are where the life-changing decisions are made. So what are life-changing decisions? Could they be things like placement, change of service, and even graduation path? These things will be pulled out and discussed during these meetings, which we call IEPs. And once again, a separate form will be presented to the family requiring their signature stating that they agree or disagree with the proposed plan. For example, what happens if a parent disagrees? Until this became law, the burden to provide or initiate due process was on the parents. Now, the burden to shift, the burden shifts to the school district if they want to try to enforce a change that the parent does not agree with. So that is the major points of Senate Bill 1108. Also, coming to private instructional personnel, which is extremely important. So these are going to be classified as your outside therapists, your ABAs, applied behavioral analysts, your social workers, your speech and occupational workers, and just a plethora of categories. Now, it doesn't relieve the school district's obligation of providing those supports or those related services to the student, but the family may feel more comfortable having someone from the outside come in and work with the child during the school day. And this has to be set up with the teacher and the administration because it's good to let the administrator know who's going to be on campus because the administrator has to ensure the safety of all of the students who are on campus. So the matrix of services in your funding document. So at the end of your IEP, there's a little sheet of paper, or not a little sheet, but a full sheet of paper, and it has a lot of numbers and categories on it. This is the matrix, and the matrix is your funding source to say how much money the school system receives for your child being at that school that is supplementary to whatever the state of Florida gives them for each child at the school. What that means is if you it can be very challenging, the complexity of the child. So if your child needs more supports and services, then that matrix number should be indicative of that increase of services or that increase of funding. Extraordinary exempting from standardized testing. We know in the state of Florida that third grade is a huge year where standardized testing is make or break, and eighth grade as well. Well, under Senate Bill 1108, there's a new process to follow to obtain an extraordinary exemption so from standardized testing. So it goes from the IEP team to the student and ultimately to the education commissioner. Now, this process to obtain an extraordinary exemption from standardized testing goes through a lot of different pieces within that school district because students must take the FSAA or the FSA first before they can be extraordinarily exempted. So special education and continuing CEU requirements under the umbrella of Senate Bill 1108. Teacher recertification included this 1 credit hour or 20 hours towards a college credit in supporting students in special education. So with that, it is great to see that CEUs are a great way of measuring the support given to families. So I love seeing that particular slide was especially important to me. And I know a lot of families because when we see students in the general education classroom, taking these courses, these CEUs really benefits everyone in that classroom because you learn about different techniques and different differentiated instructions that will support the family through all of their or support the student through their education. It's just good to know. If you have one child in your class that has an IEP, then you are a special education teacher. You support a plethora of students, and we just want to make sure, and because the CEUs are there, the state of Florida is extremely proactive when it comes to supporting students and supporting teachers. This will be considered, the CEU is considered, a non-credit enrichment for teachers. So let's get into improving educational outcomes in Florida for the juvenile justice system, or DJJ. So the Department of Education, FDOE, must do a consultation and jointly with students in the DJJ system. The plan must include provisions for eliminating barriers and increasing occupation-specific job training to high school equivalency, or GEDs. The plan must include and evaluates the student's mobility and educational outcome. Just because a child may be in the juvenile justice system does not mean that their IEP is doesn't mean that they don't have to still follow an IEP. So we want to make sure that we're not leaving those students who are a part of the juvenile justice system where they are. So middle school, there is an early warning system. There is attendance. This is housed under that 850 umbrella. So what are the middle grades warning system? Project 10 has a great piece on their website on the middle school transition. And even recently, there was a middle school transition trail that was just produced by Project 10. Super duper happy about that. New regulations require schools, grades 6, 7, and 8, to implement an early warning system. So that means to identify students who need additional support to improve their graduation outcomes. So to promote common language and use students who may be off track to help them get back on track, and students who may have had one or more suspensions. It's really up to the student and the team to really acknowledge those students who may need more support. So if they've had suspensions, if they've had course failures, and if they have received an F1 on the FSA. There is a project called Check and Connect, which is in the state of Florida, that supports this early warning system to make sure we're not leaving any students behind. So when to start transition planning? You start before the student turns 14. So you want to make sure at 14 that you can go right into a plan. And under SB 1108, that plan should include supporting or reaching out to VR, reaching out to your Social Security WIPA officer, reaching out, making sure you navigate and understand that middle school trail, and then go into the middle school trail, and then go into the updates for the high school and for the roadmap for students. The IEP team needs to begin with the transition process and develop before the student turns 14, as I said earlier, because in Florida, we're very fortunate that we have our transition age starts at 14 and not 16. So we have 2 more years to make a decision and to really get that student involved in this person-centered planning so they can see their path and they can see what we're doing now is going to be supportive to their individual goals at the end once they phase out of the school system. So, one track, multiple paths to take. As I talked about a little bit earlier, those 3 paths and what those are. So when you're on the 3 paths, you have the Access Points Diploma, which supports our students who have cognitive needs. The other diploma is the CTE, or the Career Transition Diploma, and then the Standardized Diploma for students. So you have 3 alternate means of getting the same education. And what that means for the student is when they leave school, they can now apply for financial aid. They can now do other things or go into trade schools and get funding that they may not have, or that they would not have gotten under that special diploma. So let's get into deferment. And I'm going to share my screen again so you can see all of the deferment options, or what you have to do to defer, right? So your deferment options, of course, this is housed under 850. Students meeting the requirement for standard diploma can, or receipt of IEP specifics, they can receive support until the age of 21 in the school system. So students receiving a certificate of completion can also continue to receive instruction services until the age of 21. So the IEP prescribes special education transition planning and transition service and related services through age 21. And this could be if your child needs support in additional life skills. This could be if your child is looking to do additional accelerated college credit. A student with a disability whose IEP requires a special education transition planning, transition services through 22 may defer receipt of their standard diploma. So after the deferral, the parent must be enrolled in that college or in that industry certification or in that specific life skills class. So standard diploma versus access courses. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but access courses are based on access points, not placement. There is no such thing as an access points classroom. There is a contained classroom in which access points are taught, but access points is a curriculum, not a placement. So access points align with the general education curriculum, and these courses provide students with just a built-in differentiated instruction. It's a modified curriculum, and it's put in place in order to work up so you can master that standard. So access courses are only available to students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, and parental consent is required. So let's go into the parental review of these graduation options. Any change to graduation, you have to explicitly know or explicitly be informed of those as a parent or as the person who is making that decision for the student. So the, the IEP team should carefully consider the parent's concern on these graduation options. So things to think about. The new description of how the requirements for a standard diploma will be met, specifically of additional benefits expected by the parent and the IEP team, the student graduates. These are all things to think about before you, as your child is matriculating through school. And what are going to be those appropriate and long-term measurable goals for that student? Explore your options. Your options are limitless. So flexibility on the path to your standard diploma is important because you can use course substitutions, assessments, industry certifications, and even the modified CTE points. You can use portfolios or data folios that support students with significant cognitive needs, or this may even include internships, community work, students for whom the IEP determines mastery of academic and employment competencies. They would demonstrate the most appropriate skill and completion of minimum requirements, including course credits. So all of those things, you have all of these options. So standard assessments and the end of course exams, you can see it here where you can find all of that information. End of course assessments, graduation requirements for statewide assessment, all very important. We talked about this in the beginning, just that we have a PTI in North Florida, Central Florida, and South Florida, and our two Additional programs: Family Star supports families who have medically needy or medically complex children and help families work on their health care plan for those students. Then you have the United Families Children Mental Health Grant, which supports students with mental health needs. We also house under FND our trust services and our Advocates program. Here is where you would find the bulk of a lot of the resources. So you can go to www.fnd.org and you can see ESC downloadable resources, healthcare needs. These are one-page documents that were broken out to make it easier and more understandable for families. This is if you have a specific question, you don't have to read through a bulky document. You can just go and find the one resource that you need. We also have FND University, which is a non-accredited online system specifically designed to support parents. So if you're looking at the system in its entirety, then please feel free to go there. We have it in English and Spanish, and also on our FND Facebook page. So if you type in Family Network on Disabilities right here for Facebook, or you go to your specific region Facebook, which ours would be FND PSN, you'll see a myriad of topics, projects, events that are coming up in your area. So take this time, fill out the evaluation. I love to hear feedback, love to hear from the families and the professionals that we support. As you can see on the screen, we have our phone number and we have our email address and we have our address. Ultimately, our job at Family Network on Disability is to let you know that you're not alone and that we are here to help, and we are here to strive to remove barriers for you and your family. And we do that by having honest conversations with family and to provide that knowledge and resource and understanding so that all families will feel cared as their children matriculate through school. I want to thank you again for spending time with me whenever you've decided to watch this video, and I look forward to hearing from you, communicating with you, collaborate with you, or just talking to you. Thank you. Have a good one.